I was drowning in exhaustion, frustration, and a sea of laundry that seemed endless. Anger and resentment had taken root inside me. And when he came home late again, I didn't even look up before the words slipped out. I don't love you anymore. You're just the man I co-parent with. The pause that followed felt suffocating. Long enough to know I'd cross a line, yet too short to pull anything back. If you've ever spoken out of hurt and said things you didn't fully mean, you might recognize the sting I felt. It's a memory that still pierces me. We hadn't always been strangers under the same roof. Once, he was my anchor, steady, reliable, someone who held me together when I felt like I was falling apart. Where I wavered, he remained certain. Where I doubted, he believed. Our daughter came sooner than planned, a joyful surprise, and at first, parenthood bonded us. But soon, the daily demands buried us beneath endless chores and obligations. We forgot ourselves. I began to see him not as my partner, but as a helper in life, someone who managed diapers, carried groceries, and handled trash. And he, sensing my growing coldness, treaded lightly, wary of missteps, exhausted and hesitant. One quiet evening, after putting our daughter to bed, I folded clothes while he scrolled through his phone. Months had passed without real conversation, weeks without touch. Then he spoke. "Do you still care about me?" I froze, clutching a tiny dress, searching for words I didn't have. A hollow laugh escaped me, not humor, but disbelief at the question. "You're great with her," I admitted, "but sometimes it feels like I'm just managing parenthood with a stranger." He didn't respond immediately. I watched him blink slowly, then leave the room. I heard the suitcase scrape across the floor, and it hit me like a wave. I'd driven him to leave. I whispered for him to wait, but he only paused long enough to zip the bag. "If this is how you see me," he said quietly, "I won't stay where I'm not wanted." He walked past me with calm resolve, hollow but steady. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. It smelled of him, and I couldn't bear it. When our daughter asked where he was in the morning, I said he'd gone to his mother's. True, but only part of the truth. Days bled into weeks, and his messages were cold, concise, purely about schedules. No warmth, no lingering affection. The man who once left me long voicemails now texted, as if I were a stranger, and I knew, deep down, it was my doing. I tried to justify it to friends, claiming he'd stopped showing he cared. But I remembered the little things. The coffee made just right, the shoulder rubs when I ached, the gentle, darling, even when I flinched. I had pushed him away slowly, until that final night shattered whatever remained. I assumed he would return eventually after time and space, but he didn't. A month later, he sent a link to our shared parenting calendar. No message, no attempt to reconnect, just logistics. When he dropped her off, he didn't enter the house. He kissed her forehead, handed me her bag, and left. I wanted to beg him to stay, to fight for us, but I had already convinced myself there was nothing left. I sat on the kitchen floor that night, back against the fridge, cried for someone who was still here, but gone all the same. The love didn't vanish overnight. It eroded quietly, through distance, through unspoken words, and through one careless phrase too many. Anyone who's loved someone and then watched themselves push that person away knows this pain. Weeks later, we met in a mediator's office to arrange custody and visitation. He wasn't angry. He was composed, even relieved, and I hated it, not because I wanted him hurt, but because he was free from a version of me that made him feel small, from the bitterness that had replaced love. Now, months later, we communicate only about our daughter. Occasionally, he asks how I'm doing, and I respond with half-truths. "I'm okay, but not really." My words, spoken in frustration, achieved exactly what I feared, and he believed them. What I've realized is this. Sometimes it isn't anger that drives someone away. It's the weight of your own words, the silence after they're said, the subtle surrender that comes from thinking you are no longer wanted. In the end, it's not the fights that break love. It's the quiet conviction that one day, it simply isn't there anymore.